You all right? It's really nice to see you all. It is. We checked. It's 4 years almost to the month since I was last here. What did I speak on? No, I can't remember either. So you're all right. You're all right. It's good news, though, isn't it? I do know, but only because I always write down everything that I've spoken on and where I've spoken it on it. Yeah, you can work out the grammar on that one. But it's great to be here this morning. Great to see the building works. Doesn't that look amazing? Like, what an incredible transformation that is. Just even walking down the little corridor bit there, which the outside of the building doesn't look like an outside of a building. So, stunning job. So, and Billy's almost stopped twitching as well, haven't you? At the thought of all the building work. So, I don't think he's going to be having an extension of his home anytime soon, do you? But annex. Yeah, all right. I don't think he wants one of them either. Okay, whatever you call it, he's not having one, are you, mate? You've had enough. But I just think it's always good to see buildings develop into to a space that we can use. I mean, I've been coming here for a long time, and I've known some of the frustrations with space that you've had. So it's just lovely to see it all come together and to fruition. So things have changed a bit, Billy. I thought I might just give him a quick update. So 4 years ago, when I came, and as long as you've known me up until 2 years ago, something changed. So 4 years ago when I came, I was still working for my own charity. But 2 years ago, I don't know if you know, or some of you may know, some of you won't, but I actually started working for Elim, which came as a bit of a shock, really. Didn't expect that. I've had the operation and everything. So now I head up evangelism for Elim, which is not something I ever expected. And yet it's one of those things that when the decision was made, it happened quite quickly and seemed a little bit out of the blue in lots of ways. But actually, how many of you know that often when things seem to come out of the blue, actually you can trace back weeks, months, years, and see what God was doing, that at the time you did not have a clue about the significance of those things. And I think the one thing that it's definitely taught me is you just never know what God's doing. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't. And I think I've probably arrived. This is not part of the sermon, so don't set your clocks yet. I think I've probably arrived at a place in my life where I've probably seen a lot of those things that have been individual strands coming together to make a rope. I've actually bought myself one of these things. I'm not into jewelry that much, but I've got one of these things on my wrist, which is made from ship's rope, and I don't know what it is. So my nautical knowledge endeth here, really, after the word ship. But there's a little fastening bit there. That's the technical phrase. So this is a replica of a ship's rope, and it's actually made from ship's rope. And I bought it because I just realized that all these individual strands were coming together, winding together to make one rope. And so you wind individual strands together to make one rope, and then you wind those several ropes together to make an even bigger rope. And God's really spoken to me about that. And maybe that's a little word for somebody here. I wasn't going to start off by sharing this, but sometimes it's difficult to see what the strands are going to become. And so often we're just focused on what we're doing, aren't we, in the here and now? But actually, the here and now is often the fruit of the then back then and the start of what will come. And I honestly have grown to believe that even more, that there's significance to all that God does. It's not haphazard, and that includes the rubbish and includes the good stuff. So I just throw that out as a little word maybe for somebody here today. But let's get back to what I've planned to talk about, because I think that's from God too, you'll be pleased to know. So have anybody here been baptized, just out of interest? I'm not talking about baptism. Have you been baptized? You've been dunked underwater? Have you, anybody done that? Yeah, cool, excellent. Quite a few that haven't. It's time for a baptismal service. But I got baptized the second time. Anybody got baptized twice? Yeah, okay, cool. Well, once was intended, the other time was unintended. And I used to be on the team at the Elim Church in Bradford. Now, for those of you who may be visitors today, I don't want to assume everybody knows everything about this church, but this church here is part of a family of churches, a tribe of churches called Elim. And we've got about 550-ish churches around the UK, plus a global footprint of about 4,000 churches that are connected with us. And I was on the team at the Bradford Elim Church. And for a few years, I did like 2 weeks in the church each month and 2 weeks of my traveling around. And this one particular weekend, it was baptismal service. Now, I love baptismal services. I just love listening to people's stories. I love it. It does my soul and my faith an immense amount of good. And so on the Saturday, it was my turn to go down to the church, and much like the baptismal tank here, we had to just have a team to lift off these hefty pieces of stage platform. Sorry, we're in church. And we had to fill it up with water, and then we used to stick in them what can only be described as kettle elements. Big, beastly kettle elements. So if you look inside some kettles in the days before it had those flat, disky elements, another technical phrase for you, you'd see these like coil metal type stuff. You know the thing that I mean? Well, we used to put 2. I wasn't very sure that would pass health and safety these days. I'm not even sure whether it passed it then, but anyway, we did it. And the aim was that go in there, and over 24 hours, the water would become warm. Those of you who've been baptized, you'll know it's tepid at best, isn't it? All right. So it was my turn to go down and set it all up. And so just to give you a little bit of a layout of the stage, because it's quite important. The baptismal here is on the stage, but the baptismal at the Bradford Elim Church was like in a recess. So if you imagine, this is the Elim Church. So where you've got this panel and windows here, the baptismal tank would be in there. And then to each side of the baptismal tank, there was a door each side, which is where people would come in and go out. And through like normal weeks, those doors were offices, but they were male and female changing rooms on baptismal Sundays. And so they had a door in the recess bit and a door here as well at the kind of the front facing the church and onto the platform. Does that make sense? And normally behind where the baptismal tank, there'd be like photocopiers and stuff. So there'd be a rather garish 1950s heavy curtain, which probably cost a fortune and was paid for by somebody. So we could never have it removed unless it was surgically done so, okay? So it was rather garish. And on the Saturday, when we'd gone down there, somebody put a sign on there saying, "Be careful, baptismal tank open." That was to let people know they had to be careful, because the baptismal tank was open. So I arrived on the Sunday morning, and I walked into the platform and walked in through the door, the one that was facing, and we had our little kind of semi-planning meeting, just making sure everybody knew what they were doing. On this particular Sunday, it was my turn to do the little 6-minute kiddie slot before they went out. I don't know if you used to do that here, but you'd have a little 10-15 minute at the beginning, sing a song, do a little kiddie spot, sing a song, they'd go out, and so it was my turn. Now, we'd arranged everything was fine. And then we came out. Now, all the musicians kind of took that area Because they're quite spread out, aren't they, normally, musicians? They breed, you know. Apart from you two, okay? It's very pared back. Amazing, by the way. Amazing, amazing. Anointed, gifted, prophetic worship. But one of the things I also loved is you allowed space. Thank you. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. So, but we had a massive worship band on that day. So, so we did all the sort of bits of admin, okay, and then we came out and the musicians played, and I came up to the lectern and just kind of, welcoming everybody. I said, right, we're going to sing our first song, and then I've got a little something I want to tell to the children, but we'll let the adults listen. And so we started singing the song, and it was at that point that I realized, now this will show you when this was. I realized I'd forgotten my acetate. Remember those heady days of acetates? They were just kind of post-flannelgraph those days. I saw a church recently who still had a flannelgraph. Most of the disciples were missing. So some of the figures had to double up for all sorts of different roles if you were going to use it again. So I realised I'd forgotten me acetate. So I turned to the chap who was leading worship on the keyboard. I said, "Oh, Alan, can you just carry on leading? I've got to go and get me acetate." He said, "Yeah, no problem." But I couldn't get to the office that way because the musicians, they were spread out and in position. So I couldn't get in there. So I thought, all right, it's not a problem. I'll use the other door. You know the other door? And the thing is, like, when I arrived that morning, the sign, it was still there initially. But now it wasn't there. And in the madness, when I saw the sign, obviously, when I saw about the baptismal tank, the danger, obviously I knew what to do or what not to do. I knew where I should go and where I shouldn't go. But now the sign had been removed. Though the sign was there earlier, I'd quickly forgotten all about the danger because the sign had been removed and I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't focusing. I wasn't planning. I just had to get me acetate. I mean, it wasn't that long a song. Do you know what I mean? Could have done with Shine Jesus Shine or something like that. That'd have taken the pressure off a little bit. If ever I wanted a worship leader to have a prophetic moment, it was then. But no, the song was getting shut close. I thought, we've limited time here. So under mild panic, I went through the curtains. And do you remember, that's when I was baptized the second time. And the hilarious thing is, right? The brilliant thing is nobody in the congregation knew, right? The worship team didn't know, apart from my mate Mark Richardson, who was sat down playing guitar. He heard the splash. And he like a true professional, he carried on playing. But he was playing fast like that to what was quite a slow song. He was double timing it just to keep him beat. His shoulders were gone. They completely gone. You know when you're laughing and your shoulders are gone and you've gone beyond the point of no return, haven't you? There's no coming back. Oh, it was one of them moments. And I went in, I got me acetate. And ever the professional, ladies and gentlemen, because obviously even to me it's only that high. But all I'm going to say is my trousers were moist. That's all I'm going to say. And I was absolutely wet through, absolutely drenched. But I carried on going. But I want to tell you, Christian or no Christian, if I find out who remind that sign to this day, I'm going to have them. I am going to have them, I tell you. Because whilst the sign was there, I knew the danger. But isn't it incredible how quickly you can forget about something when the reminders aren't there? When there's nothing there to keep reminding us of the danger, of the trouble, once that starts to be removed and is removed, it's amazing how quickly we can forget about things. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to suggest that very, very quickly we live in a world where lots of warning signs have been removed. And very quickly people have forgotten. In no longer than a few generations, people have forgotten. They're not aware of the danger that there is of living without God. And that's where we find ourselves right now in culture. Now, we can either get really depressed about that. I was chatting to a friend of mine. There's a legend in Elim called John Lancaster. And his son, Andy Lancaster, who's a really good mate of mine, we were having a little natter, and this is going back 20 years ago. And we were just reflecting how there doesn't seem to be much knowledge of Christianity. This was 20 years ago. And it's less now, it's dissipated even more. And we were reflecting and saying, either we can get really depressed about that, or we can actually say we've got a brand new canvas to paint a new picture. And I believe we have a brand new canvas to paint a new picture. Because you see, actually the knowledge that people did have of God was a bit skewed. It was a bit muddled. It was a bit religious. It was a bit institutionalized. But we've got a brand new canvas to paint a brand new picture about the real Jesus. And so for me, I'm actually quite excited, not disheartened. They tell me that the church is in decline, but I think it's institutional religious church that's in decline. You see, I've chosen to believe that when God says I will build my church, he wasn't lying. That's what I've chosen to believe. And I'm not going to listen to any media. I'm not going to listen to any stats, because actually statistics, they can do what you want. Now listen, I'm not going to kid myself. The nation's in a mess. Less and less people want anything to know about God. But I actually believe that in this new season, in this blank canvas, we can begin to see how God wants to build his church. Don't you want to make an impact in this world? Don't you want to die knowing you've left a footprint? Don't you want to die knowing that the world has been pleased that you've been around? I want to have that kind of impact, ladies and gentlemen. I want to look at my life while I'm alive and see that I'm making an impact. I want to know that this world's a better place because I've been here. Not because I'm some arrogant person that struts around, but because actually every single one of us has the potential to make an impact in this world, and for this world to be a better place because we're here. I don't know where you are in your journey of life and faith. I don't know what you think about God. I would guess that the majority of people here would be Christians. But it might be that you're here today and you're not a Christian. And by that I mean you've never said yes to God. You've never given your life over to God. And with his help, begun to live life his way and asked him forgive you for not living life his way. You've never embraced his forgiveness because of what Jesus did. And I want to say to you, if that's you here today, give your life to Christ, and you will not only receive forgiveness and new life, but you will be blown away as to how God can use you to make an impact. See, I've been thinking about this a lot recently. So often in church, we've been so concerned at rescuing people from, we've forgotten that they're rescued for. Now, we are rescued from. We are rescued from our wrong and from an empty way of life. I'm not minimizing that. I'm not eradicating that. I'm not taking the spotlight off that. What I'm saying is, but we're rescued for something too. That's the beautiful thing. Isn't it amazing, really? I mean, this is, I'm kind of putting out a lot of stuff that God's been stirring in me this year. And one of the things that I've been blown away by this year, this reminder that what I do as a Christian shouldn't come out of a place of pressure. It should come out of a place of privilege. And so often in the church we pressurize ourselves. Like, I've got to pray more. I've got to share my faith more. I've got to... Actually, I've been asking God to put within me, Lord, help me to realize it's not that I have to pray more. It's that I get to pray. It's not that I need to tell more people about Jesus. It's that I get to tell people about Jesus. You see, I don't know if you know this, but God doesn't need you. You know, and in case you were in any doubt of that, do you remember creation? You don't, do you? Because you weren't there. And as it goes, it wasn't a bad effort, was it? Like, if you think about all that God did, I mean, that's up there, isn't it? It's up there, and you weren't around. And in fact, when the minute we did come around, we messed it all up. What did we bring to creation? Mess. But here's the incredible thing, ladies and gentlemen. God doesn't need me, and yet in his wisdom, he has chosen to reduce most of his activity on planet Earth through people like you and through people like me. How beautiful is that? What a privilege. What a pleasure. And so often we can be disheartened by the magnificence of the task, that the lack of knowledge. You know, Mother Teresa, I'm sure you've heard of Mother Teresa, did an incredible work among some of the most poor and destitute in Calcutta. And somebody once said to her, don't you just feel that your efforts are but a drop in the ocean? And she had this fantastic reply: the ocean is made up of drops. Isn't that incredible? And the ocean is made up of drops. This is the beautiful thing. And so often we can feel that for God's kingdom, we're just a drop in the ocean. But I want to suggest to you, God's kingdom's made up of drops and drips in some cases as well. But it is. And if you were in any doubt about God wanting to use you to make an impact, then I think this bunch of sentences we're going to turn to in the Bible right now gives us a strong reminder, a strong encouragement. For those of you who are familiar with the Bible, why don't you just turn to Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 to 16. Matthew 5, verses 13 to 16. I've deliberately set a context for our reading this morning because I want to drop this reading right into those thoughts that we've just begun to think about. And then I want to make some comments about them. Some things that God has been stirring in me recently and accelerating in me. So Matthew 5, 13 to 16. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Notice it says, you are. It's not you need to become. You can one day, when you've been a Christian long enough. You know, when you've done this and when you've done, it says you are the light. You are the salt. Jesus followed the Beatitudes, an incredible sermon series. I mean, in beautiful presentation of what it means to be a God person. And he follows that teaching with two incredible characteristics of his kingdom, namely salt and light. And the interesting thing about salt and light, or these two elements, these two characteristics, is they're only relevant outside the church. There's a thought. We're not salt and light in here on a Sunday morning. We're salt and light out there. They're only activated outside of the church. Both are expressive. Both designate a service beyond themselves. And both, interestingly, are important to human experience. In fact, the Romans of the day had a statement, a very popular statement: there is nothing more useful than sun and salt. They recognized that these two basic commodities were so useful, light and salt. And these two characteristics, they refer to the enriching and preservative influence of the Christian in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, these are incredible. And I think I've forgotten a little bit how incredible they are. Anybody else? Oh, you're perfect. Good to know. 5 of us. Lovely. The rest are what we call liars. I forget about this stuff sometimes because I get a little bit bogged down with the routine of life and the humdrum and the familiarity of being a Christian and the familiarity of knowing God. I get too familiar. I realize that you're much more godly than me, and this is now just a therapy session for me. And I'm going to feel much better at the end of this, and you might not. It's true, isn't it? It is so true. Not that this is a therapy session, but that we can forget and become almost blasé. Like the longer we've been a Christian, we can become indifferent to it, blasé about it. And yet, God restricts his activity through us being salt and light in the world. We're not here to judge the world. We're here to love it. We're not here to tell it what it must do and what it mustn't do. We're here to love it and live it. And when we love it and live it, that creates a platform and people want to know. How many of you know that advice is better taken when you ask for it rather than somebody just giving it to you with no relationship? I've got a number of stories of some Christians that have come up to me and thought they could help me and share with me. And they come up and they call me brother. I hate that. When people call me brother, because I know they're not going to be brotherly in what they're going to say. It's fake. It's like, what brotherly means is brace yourself. That's what it means. Don't come at me and tell me brotherly. Now, I will take all the input from anybody who knows me, who loves me, who spent time with me. And in fact, I will solicit input. I will ask for input. I'll give permission. I've got some incredible mates who I've said, if ever you see me behaving like an idiot or in an ungodly manner, you challenge me. And I will take it. I will take it. Because there's relationship. But so often as Christians, we're telling the world how to live. They've no relationship with us. We're not being salt and light. We're just shouting out. Normally from inside the context of a building. But tell you what, the reason the church has lost its voice is because we've become too institutionalized. Jesus never intended us for us to be institutionalized. Please, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with organization and institutions. I'm not saying that. But we are the church. We're the salt and we're the light. And it's clear in Scripture that we are the salt and we are the light. It's not you can be if you try, but you are. It's not that you're some of the light, but there's a bit more light needed. It's not that you're some of the salt, but we need a bit more flavoring from somewhere else. No, you are, definite article, the salt, the light. You're all there is to impact this world and make a difference. And we can be it because we are it. Are you not fed up with all these promises about revival being round the corner? I mean, ever since I've been a Christian, revival's been around the corner. I mean, how long is that blooming corner, Billy? Do you know what I mean? It's like, how long is that corner? Well, I think revival, I don't know what the word revival really is, but my reading of the word reviving, it means something that's once been alight. So I think reviving takes place in the church and impacts the world, not takes place in the world. I think revival's in the lives of Christians. And here's a thought that I felt God speak to me about, just nudge me. Revival is around the corner, but we're waiting for it to come round to us. No, we've got to go around to it. You see, I'm working on the basis because it tells me in Matthew 9:35, the Lord, pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest send out workers. Why? Because there's not a problem with the harvest. The Lord of the harvest, it's plentiful. So we just got to get out there. So revival's just around the corner. We've just got to get out there. We've got to stop being here going, oh, bring it, Lord. Oh, bring it. But I don't know why I went all Yorkshire when I started doing that. I'm here, Lord, waiting. Stop waiting. Thank you. Job done. Let's finish with a song. I was going to say that, but in about another 15 minutes. Right? Well, you know where I'm going now, don't you? Have you got a song about go? Yeah? No, I love it. I'm only joking. But I love it when little churches make a big difference. And there's a church in Elim that has never really made the headlines. Not that it's about making the headlines. You understand what I'm saying? But this church in Grimsby, Elim Church, Grimsby, it's in the north of England, just by Hull. And is anybody from Grimsby here? You've been there, have you? Oh, did you? Oh, you're posh, aren't you? Oh, we got Bobber too, haven't you? She tied in. So it's on the east coast, and it is grim. Grimsby is the clues in the name, isn't it? Yeah, it's like Grimsby. You know what I mean? The clues in that it isn't a nice place. It's one of the poorest places in the UK. But there's an Elim church in Grimsby, and I think if everybody rocked up on a Sunday, they'd probably have about maybe 30, 35 people. But on an average Sunday, they'd maybe have about 30 people. And most of those don't have a job. There's only one or two of those people have a job. And yet, this church employs 3 people full time. And let me tell you how they do it. They've done it by raising funds and by the minister, Alan Taylor, back in the day, being really wise, really savvy. And they've raised all sorts of funds, and they managed to buy properties and they rent them out. And this church are having an incredible impact. If you imagine the crossroads in a kind of poor housing area, crossroads on the street, on one corner they've got like a charity shop. On the other corner opposite, there's only one corner they haven't got anything on. On one of the corners is the church building, and then on the other corner they've got like a community centre that they call Your Place. And I was doing some events with the church a couple of years back now, and I think it was last year. Do you remember that incredible run of hot weather that we had in was it June time, around that time, wasn't it? Was it July, into July? So June, July time. And I was doing an event, and I'd got up there, we'd had a meeting with the minister. And the minister's wife said to me, I'm just going to go out into the garden. Anybody want to come? And I thought, well, I'm a bit hot, might just go and get a bit of fresh air. And I thought it would be like just a little tiny garden, like what you see in maybe back-to-back houses or terraced houses. So we went out of the church, went across the road, went beyond my space, and then past 3 properties which the church had bought and renovated. And then into this kind of large security gates, but really beautiful ones. And we walked in to their garden. And their garden would probably be, I would guess, about the width of this building and twice as long. And several years previous, I can't remember the exact time scales, it was one of these fly tipping areas. And it was just full of washing machines, prams, supermarket shopping trolleys. And it was just a real eyesore. And the church cleared it all up. The council gave them the land. And they put security fencing all the way around. Again, really nicely done. It became like one of these community gardens. They've got like a state-of-the-art playground for children. With that stuff that's soft but looks like tarmac. That really expensive stuff. They've got a massive polycarp tunnel, which would be meters upon meters upon meters long, where they're growing stuff in it. And people in the community have given some seeds, and they've grown it, and then they've sold it, and they use that to do other things. It's big, and it's got like a more formalised garden part, like you would see in something like a heritage property place. Beautiful. This is right in the heart of this rundown area. And as a result of that, people and in the backs of their houses started coming out and sweeping up and decorating their home. And crime goes down in the area. And there's a local school I think it's for young boys who are sort of a little bit naughty. and they're there like a correction institute type place. And when they get a bit edgy and a little bit like they're going to kick off, the school ring up and say, can we bring them to your garden, because it settles them down, it brings peace. And so they bring them in. And even the police now have said, you're making such an impact. So they paid for a brand new kitchen for the church in one of the centres, because actually you're bringing crime down. I read a report recently about street pastors. Street pastors, wherever there's a street pastors team, crime has gone down in the area at the night time, because the church is out there, salt and light, drops in the ocean, making an impact, but making such a big impact that even the government and the Home Office now realise and recognise what street pastors are doing. How incredible is that? You see, ladies and gentlemen, we can change the fabric of our society when we live in it. When we live in it, we can change the fabric of our society. For me, that's the tiptoeing into revival. When we get more and more people, more and more Christians doing that, going out there and making a difference, living it out in our communities. You see, in Elim, a part of my role, I've been pulling together an evangelism strategy. This is what we're about in Elim: relevant words. We want to communicate the gospel relevantly. Caring actions. We want to love people. Not just feed them so we can preach at them, but love them. Caring actions and spirit empowered. What better place to begin to move in the miraculous than out there? That's being salt and light. It's not just words, it's not just community, it's not just spirit, it's all three. Relevant words, caring actions, spirit empowered. And I honestly believe, speaking for us as Elim Christians, if we could begin to realize the impact that we can have, and we get out there and be salt and be light, I think then we begin to bring in God's kingdom. Then we begin to see something that we can say vaguely resembles revival. Let's not be known for what we're against. Let's be known for what we're for. Let's not shout at the bad story. Let's tell the new story. Let's not fight against. Let's fight for. And watch what will happen when these kingdom principles are brought about. You know, salt in the Roman world symbolized purity, probably from the process, the extensive process that it would go through. You know, when we talk about salt and light, we have a slightly Anglified, westernized view of what salt and light really is. In the last 5 or 6 minutes of my talk to you this morning, I want you to understand and help you understand what salt and light really means, what Jesus was saying, what was in his mind when he was talking about these things. Because when we begin to understand that, we begin to realize how we can be salt and light. So salt was considered to be something of incredible value, to the point where Roman soldiers would often be paid in salt. In fact, the word salary comes from salt. Okay, so that's where we get the word salary from, because it's something that's of value. But when we think about salt, we think about what's that white plastic tube of loads of salt that you get 80p for a massive bucket load of the stuff. That's not really salt. That's the dregs of salt. That's like calling Nescafe coffee. I don't drink instant, by the way. No, when we're talking about salt, it's more like sea salt. And even in fact, that's slightly less true of what the salt was in the Bible. The salt in the Bible, what they would do is they'd go and get these fairly sizable buckets. They would drag the water out and they'd set it in the sun. And over a long process, the water would evaporate. And what would be left would be massive salt crystals. And the salt was used for all sorts of, it was meant to be a preserving commodity. So it'd stop things going off. It would enhance the flavor. It would draw out the flavor. Salt used correctly draws out the flavor, not overshadows it. You know when you've had too much salt? Yeah? Whoa, it's like, whoa, that wakes you up, doesn't it? It's not meant to do that. The salt that Jesus talked about went through this incredible purifying process. In other words, the reason it was valuable is because it had been through a purifying process. And as it is valuable because of that, then its impact is greater. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you, when Jesus says you're the salt of the earth, he's not just talking about impact. He's talking about how valuable and how pure and how beautiful you are. The salt that Jesus talked about was one of the most valuable of commodities. So when he says you are the salt, it's privileged. You're valuable. You're amazing. Realize who you are. See, I think half our problem is we don't realize who we are and what we've got. Because if I, Mark Greenwood, realized who I was and what I've got, I wouldn't need anybody to go and tell me to make a difference. I'd just be doing it. Which is more biblical. Great Commission, go and make disciples. The Greek says, so wherever you go, make disciples. Just in the everyday. In the everyday, in the workplace. Be salt and light. That's what it means to begin to make disciples. We think about discipleship as a post-decision process. It's not. We make disciples every day of our life. We're walking around. The discipleship journey, the conversion journey, part of that. Some people are far away, some people are on the way, but it's all part of making disciples. Who are you? Where has God placed you to be? That's where you're meant to be salt. But make sure you spend some time in the substance. Don't just dip in for your work hours and dip out. Get to know the people, the community that God's placed you in, and begin to be salt. So that's salt. And then secondly, you are the light of the world. Now, I'm a little bit nosy. Anybody else nosy here? Yeah? I get it from my mother. She's a curtain twitcher, all right? Honestly, if a lorry pulls up in the street, she's having a look. Doesn't matter what. She's proper nosy, all right? And I'm a little bit nosy. And in Bradford, where I'm from originally, we had a lot of back-to-back houses. And the back-to-back houses, like their front rooms were literally on the street. You had a tiny bit of pavement and then's the road. Oh, man, and I couldn't resist it. I couldn't resist looking in. Especially when when it's at night time and one of them's got a light on. Well, like the ones without a light, I'm not bothered about those. But I'm walking down, it's got no light on, I'm not bothered. It's got no light on, I'm not bothered, ladies and gentlemen. It's got no light on, I'm not really bothered. It's got a light on, ooh, let's have a little look in there. It's quite embarrassing when you see the people inside and they're looking out though. It's like, what do you do then? This is what you do then. I did do that once. Can you believe it? I was with my mate. He said, what are you doing? I went, I don't know. I just reacted. I didn't really know what to do. But there was something like attractive about the light because it kind of just got me. There's something really valuable about salt, but there's something really attractive about the light. We're meant to be both. It's not saying salt, light, which one do you want to be? The decision's yours. You are the salt, you are the light. We're both and. And what's really fascinating, final little bit of background information, final few points, then we're going to pray. But what's really interesting about the light, when we think about this passage, it says nobody takes a lamp and puts something over it. But we do. In the UK, we do. In most westernised houses, we do. It's like we go to IKEA, don't we? We buy different lights for different rooms. And then we get a lampshade. So we misunderstand the significance. If you go back to Bible times, most houses were single rooms. During the day, they would live on top, which is why the roofs are flat. There would be some houses that would have annexes. But only really expensive ones. And what would happen, because most houses were these single rooms, what would happen is they'd get an oil-based lamp. So you know the parable of the 10 virgins? That's the same lamp as those. So it's oil-based lamp. And what they would do is they'd get this lamp and they'd look around the house and they'd put it into a corner. And this is incredible, this. You think interior design is a new thing and linked with Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen. It's not. But interior design happened way before. What they would do is they would place the lamp, they would lift it up, place it there so that it could fill the room. So it would be strategically placed for maximum illumination. And then what they would do, let's say it was in this corner, they would paint that wall white, and they would paint this wall white. And they did some recent excavations and found buildings like this with a kind of lime, almost like lime-based emulsion, almost like a plaster of Paris type effect. And they would put that on the walls because then the illumination from the lamp was magnified. And without it, without the white background, it might just fill the room. It'd fill the room all right, but with the white background, the light would go beyond the parameters of the room and often into the street. So it would go beyond its intended influence. So when Jesus says you're the light of the world, he's saying you're attractive. Where have I positioned you for maximum illumination? And I'll let you fill in what you think those whitewashed walls, in probably the wrong phrase to use because that's a negative, those emulsioned walls, those white emulsioned walls. I'll let you think about what they might be. Maybe it's God's love. You can answers on a postcard, and in small groups you can discuss that one. But the critical thing being that to understand what Jesus meant by you're the light of the world, we need to understand how the lamps were used. It's not about lots of little lights that just illuminate one room. It's about where has God positioned you for your sphere of influence? Where is your room? Where is your room? Where can you be for most strategic influence? And fully understand that the illumination will go beyond even its intended influence. You are the salt. You are the light. And I'm sure you'll agree with me this morning. It's an incredible privilege. Lord, may it never be a pressure. Should we pray? Let's pray. Let's just pause for a few minutes, shall we? I think one of the songs which is, I love singing it and it's great for kiddies, but it does a disservice. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. We're not a little light. I just feel maybe for some of us this morning, it's not a question of realizing we are light or we are salt. That's part of it. But I think we've not lived our lives in places to activate it. And because of that, we lose sight of how incredible our light is. For light only truly reaches its influence when there's darkness around. You don't realize how bright a light's influence can be during the day, do you? Switch on a light bulb and you only get the impact of it when it's in the darkness. And salt, you can't tell how salty something is by looking at it. It's only when it's gone in the substance and begins to do its work. And so I think God just wants to nudge us out this morning and say, go out there. What's the substance? Where's your influence? And the church should be a place where collective influences come together and support one another. So just in these few moments before I hand over, let me pray for myself and pray for you. Lord, help us to be, not to be salt and light, but help us to get out there. Because that's all that's needed. So, Father, I pray for myself, pray for every single person here, that, Lord, you'll lead us to where we're meant to be having an influence. That you'll lead us to the substance, lead us to the rooms where our light's meant to shine and where we're meant to be a salt. Lord, teach us the value of the salt and the light that is within us. Help us to not minimize it. It's just a few granules or a little light bulb. So, Lord, just in these few moments, we humbly bring ourselves before you. In Jesus' name, amen.